Synchronicities are everyday miracles when we are able to again listen deeply to how they connect. Like a word that we may see as we're driving, like on a board, and then at home there is this similar, sounding word. And so, like, just kind of connecting the dots, what I call magical winks, they reveal that exciting feeling of being part of what's bigger than the mind can comprehend.
Welcome to Living in 5D with your host, Peter D.
I'm so excited. I get to spend this time with Ines Maricle, Starbird. What an example of just an uplifting spirit Ines is. Thank you for joining me today, Ines. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm not going to read a formal bio. I'm just going to share that Ines is profound in her ability to tap into music, playing uplifting, healing, spiritual music, as well as light language. So we'll talk more about her healing abilities and everything. Ines, please tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, interestingly enough, I am now living in Santa Fe, which is the land of enchantment, right? And I was born and raised in Paris with a father who is from Venezuela, so with some Spanish language going on in my household, and my mother being French, but also speaking many languages. So I feel like the kind of the playing with sound, at a young age, like trying to find out when there was a secret that was passed on between my father and my mother in Spanish, thinking that I wouldn't understand. It was kind of like the revelation of like, merging the different sounds with meaning.
So
And
you're connected to spirit in a deep way. I know that about you, just your presence when I'm with you and everything. About how old were you when you first realized you had that kind of connection?
I was about 4 years old, and
Wow.
yes, so the relationship with language has always been prominent, and the sound of language, and so yeah, so I had connection with the elementals, like many children, speaking to objects and specifically stones, and for me having some summers in Provence, it was also really connecting with the grasshoppers and the lizards. And I knew how to tame them after a while.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my thing, to tame them and to speak fairy language to them. So
So
that was my
when you
first.
were speaking fairy language as a child, did you know you were speaking fairy language or were you just playing around? How did that work?
I knew that it was the way to communicate with them. That's all I knew. I didn't know if it was, grasshopper language or lizard language or praying mantis language, which I had, my best friend was a praying mantis.
Nice.
Um, it felt really natural to talk to them like this and then pet them. And, the secret, I will tell you a secret, is to pet these little creatures on their third eye. Either grasshoppers or lizards will be tamed by being, you know, like tamed with a little petting there. And it was amazing. Like I could have plenty of, lizards and grasshoppers on me after having this interaction with them and light language. Hmm.
So you do these amazing healing sessions. Okay. My wife just tells me the opening she has after coming to one of your sessions. And I got the pleasure of being at a house concert at your house over the weekend, and I toured your healing room, and it was very interesting because it wasn't like any other healing room. There was art supplies, there was a harmonium, there were crystal bowls, there was all kinds of musical ways that you can access. When you're in that situation, how do you know where to direct a session? What information comes to you? How do you tap into that?
Mm. So I feel one of the most important connections in the very beginning of the session is kind of traveling together towards spirit, or, bringing in spirit beings into the session with the person that is looking for some opening. And so we create an intent, and just by the grounding meditation in the beginning and the intent, things start to flow through me. Like, now you're going to use the crystal ball. Now, your feather shall be really welcome in clearing the aura. So there is so many alternatives for, really listening for the need in the moment.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that is the
Fantastic.
reason to have all these objects and everything ready, because I never know in advance what spirit is going to ask me to use.
So now we're with many people who will be watching this at different spaces and times. And what do you have for them for as far as connecting and being open to spirit like you are, to know when its sound is appropriate, when art is appropriate, when a clearing is appropriate? What would you tell somebody who's just listening in on how they can start to access this extraordinary 5D ability?
Hmm. Well, that's a great question. What comes in right now would be to really honor the body. So there are different ways, to really include the body in the session as a receptacle. And I think that that's part of the intention, you know um, like the St. Francis prayer, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. This is kind of a request for the allies, the invisible beings that are supporting the session, to also really invite the instrument, the body instrument, to be clear. And so with this intent, the mind usually really follows the heart's desire. So if I anchor, right, if I anchor in my heart, my wish is, or my intention is, to really be a clear vessel and receive information, and invite the mind to take a step away from the room and really receive from the heart and spirit. Usually something happens that is
Cool.
clearing the way. Okay, so I
Very
think,
cool.
yeah, these two things, the grounding, and we can call in like all the energies of the energy centers of the chakras. That would be a way, or connecting with a grounding cord to the earth and opening, the crown, and then bringing an intention that's very clear and succinct for spirit to do its work.
So if you check the links below, you're going to find Starbird's website. And do you do sessions remotely? Can you do them over the internet for people?
Yes, I actually love to do remote sessions, because it really confirms the miraculousness of energy.
Now, time and space is just everywhere. Isn't it wild? So you guys can check that link below. And part of the reason I'm doing this interview and doing the series on talking to people with extraordinary 5D abilities is my wife Tracy and I, we've produced a TV show called Becoming Awesome. And the point of that show is to actually transmit abilities, not just talk about them, but to be with somebody and transmit them. And we did a beautiful, beautiful episode with Ines, and the links are below for that if you want to subscribe to Gnostic TV and actually get an activation, in this case for light language music. And so let's talk about that for a little bit on how people can know more about light language. And then if they want to, you can watch the show and actually get the activation. So for me, what was super interesting was we did this show and I knew light language was a thing and I knew people were out there doing light language. And then about 2 weeks after we recorded it, I started having light language experiences. I was speaking it. I would sit in my meditation pyramid and then I would just feel the need to speak out, and I would, and then my energy levels would just shoot way up. I didn't know I know that. So can you just speak a little bit about light language and what that's like for you and how you use it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so again, the intention for healing higher, energies to come in and open the heart. And then there is something about healing, um, that brings in the aspect that can be broken, or so I love to include wholeness of being, for people to recover some parts that have been maybe scattered with trauma, or whatever it is, illness, grief. So the intent again is instrumental in receiving the language. So, for instance, if I'm going to focus on bringing that aspect forth for people that are listening, I will ask for the highest good of those listeners and how they can receive the language transmission in the highest way. And so, with the intent, I will listen and then receive. And
Nice.
yeah, there is no mind involved in this process at all.
Let's just make this really simple. Because when I first heard of light language, I was like, okay, so that's these words. And then I was around people doing light language and I could feel it, but I had no mental idea what was going on. So can you just be really super simple and just tell somebody who's a beginner what light language is in simple beginner words?
So, what I understand from my own experience is, it's um, a composition of sounds that are really tailored to bring your body, mind, into a higher frequency. And so, in receiving those codes that not really make sense, first of all, your mind starts to, disappear, and you're receiving a direct healing for what your intention is, by opening your vessel to the codes. And those light codes, we like to call them light codes. I also love to call them love codes, because they are that frequency of love. And so,
Nice.
in a way, right, the cells receive a message of self love in the moment, opening up to self love and to recover the true nature of who we are, really. So, it's real magic. Hmm.
So my 3D mind wants to think, okay, it's light language. That means there's somebody speaking is out there. So when I go into the field and I get quiet and try to go to the source of light language, I get a whole different understanding of the universe. See, I'm used to, we're on the planet Earth and there's these star systems and beings, right? So I can talk about distance. Then there's like angels, and so they're in like a heavenly realm. But light language is different. When I get into the light language space, it's more like there's dimensional aspects, and it's not just different beings from different systems or different realms like angelic. There's a whole dimensional aspect going in, and it's more connected to source. It's almost like source God is the filter, is the medium that this language comes through. So it doesn't really matter who, what, as much as it's given me with God's love. Can you speak to what you think about where light language comes from?
Yes, I definitely feel that it's encompassing all the multidimensionality, which means if it is part of, a system of beings that are working specifically for an intent, they will send their codes. However, again, it depends of the intent, right? Because I do feel that there are different languages that come through that are following the intent.
Yeah, it is so specific. What the intent you're holding as far as what you're allowing definitely changes for me anyway. The timbre, the quality, even the phrasing and the sound of the language that comes through. Definitely there's an intent aspect there.
Yes. So I would consider that if it's all beings, right? All beings in a different dimension, when your intent is clear, it's like source kind of puts the ingredients together. Like, making a cake, yummy, yummy. Because it's received in that way. The body says yes to yumminess, right? So in a way, it is opening the vessel to receiving more light, and that's that higher frequency of being, and then continuing. I feel like part of this is that it can become a, a grooming, right? A grooming of the instrument by practicing. So letting ourselves, receive and practicing every day or maybe a few times a week helps also to be acquainted with the frequencies.
So I'm a channeler, and I had to come to grips with accepting that information and words would come to me, and it wasn't from me, and I was afraid to share it with people, but they all said, oh, this is great stuff. So now I got light language, and I've only shared it publicly once at a dinner party. And these are people who aren't even that spiritual, and they're like, yeah, something happened energetically. So it's like having the courage to know, okay, I'm in connection with this is kind of important. I don't want to put you on the spot, except I'm going to put you on the spot. Is light language something that you can just turn on and off? Can you just take a breath and go into the flow and have it come through? Or is it something that you have to be in a certain space to receive?
Well, let's say that it ties into what we were just talking about in terms of practice, I could feel that, yes, if I take a breath now, I can access, um, the light language because I have been also practicing, and it becomes part of a lifestyle in a way, is to also include this language in my life.
The show living a 5D lifestyle, and now light language is part of yours. So is it too much to ask if we would just take a nice breath and go into the intent that anybody viewing this program can receive an activation, can receive a connection to their own internal source to expand into the realms of light language? Is that something you could maybe share with our audience today?
I would love to. I would love to. Yes, let's try it.
All right, let's do it.
So, lots of beings listening right? So I want to include all beings listening. Even if a cat comes by, right? Receiving really this loving energy throughout the cells, the bones, the blood, the air, the breath. So that's my intent. Serving all. Shetek arunde entu shara entu sinnaraya nunga amore inchik bre inchuk kusikarbi hinikalak undari ayomoshista karan. Orina ha unkura entuka ish untupri intika. Ayita tita brim ilu ya tekar e ora tak brim brim awichi para bamul tapere eto kototo to para alle para bau arret brim shishtet is to para etana etana uh.
Feel the opening. It was different. You know, sometimes when I'm around light language, I get these energy rushes. This one, it was more like just expansiveness. So I'm feeling drawn to try it. Are you ready for a duet? Is it okay that this is the first time I publicly try light language?
Yes, please. And I want to speak to also the variation, opening to being a place for variation. For instance, like I received that first one that was a little bit more with directives and right and intentional kind of suggestion in the voice. And then the other one that came in was like, oh, I'm here too. And I want to stress out the playfulness. So there were two different, aspects that wanted to be incorporated. And I think that maybe there are some guests that may want a little bit more playfulness in their life that were invited to hear those codes.
Fantastic. Yeah. I know when I'm practicing it and I'm sitting in my backyard meditating in my pyramid, I'll sit there and I'll be getting into a certain rhythm. Then all of a sudden it'll change and just be completely something else. And yeah. So, all right, everybody listening, I'm going to join the fun. And here goes first time publicly doing light language. Hoto makato ni sahola ti chitumapaha ti na la kosomachi ta la ti na ho ho ia chacho ti lomona la kana saya ha ti la na.
That was beautiful. So fun. Yeah. So I received, this kind of image of an ancient sage sitting by a tree and with a book
Yeah,
and
I kind of got that in kind of Mesoamerican too, as well. But it's just interesting to me that we can accept channeling and then we accept it from a certain voice with a certain, message and stuff like that. So we subscribe it to an entity, but this is different. I mean, you were talking about fairy language. It's like accessing a whole realm rather than just an individual. So thank you, Ines, for sharing light language and letting me share it. Remember, you can view the show on Gnostic TV, Becoming Awesome. It's called Light Language Music, and you'll receive an entire activation to bring this into your consciousness. That's really what transformed me. And then, of course, you can always check the link to connect with Starbird directly and book a healing session. That's just really, really open yourself up to expansion. Okay. Now, I'd like to speak a little bit about miracles, everyday miracles. When you're at a certain frequency, life is different. I always use the analogy that your elevator gets off at the same floor of all the stuff that you're seeing, right? That's where your consciousness is. The elevator opens up. That's your reality. you're a high vibration person, Starbird, and you own that, you accept it, you allow it to come to you. How does that translate to your everyday life? If you could speak to everyday miracles, I think that could be inspiring for a lot of people.
Yes. So, hmm. Synchronicities are everyday miracles when we are able to again listen deeply to how they connect, right? Um, like a word that we may see as we're driving, like on a board or something, and then, at home there is this again, I think I'm getting hungry, but let's look at ingredients, and there is like this similar, sounding word, and so like just kind of connecting the dots, I feel is what I call magical winks, is to have like this
Magical winks.
magical winks, because they reveal that's exciting, that exciting feeling of being part of what's bigger than the mind can comprehend, and how these things, these little winks, make the heart fonder for life. So it's kind of an energizing process that say, oh my goodness, I can manifest, really anything I want to be. And to anchor this as a truth, you know, enables us to create, to manifest, to play with the material as anything else. So the
Yeah,
dream
see,
is the dream. Yeah.
I think so many people miss the point of being alive. One of my favorite teachers, Sri Bhagavan, right over my shoulder, this shoulder, Sri Bhagavan said, life is for living. Right. And so this is a playground we're in. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's about manifestation takes off when you're in synchronicity. When you have those little winks guiding you, you're more energized. It's just more fun. The game of life becomes a lot better. I think, people take it for granted, but that is a miracle in every moment. And you seem to embody that. Would you like to talk about any specific miracles? Some people judge it. Oh, this was a big one. That was a small one. I don't. They all take a lot of arrangement on the other side. Would you like to share any miracles you've experienced so it just can uplift people? Know, oh, yeah, I can have that too.
Mm. Yes, I feel, uh, part of it is like that deep trust in miracles themselves, right? That life, that the body is a miracle, that being this spirit inside this incredible system, um, of elementals, right? Of elements, of is just something that's beyond our comprehension, and that is in itself, a grounding for things to start to show up. So for me, uh, manifesting the sanctuary that we are in, has been like one of the biggest miracles in my life. And what happened is I feel that the spirit of this home, from where we were, across the country, called us to do our work here. And in a way, there were some challenges, like selling the small home that we were in Seattle, and it took a while. And so just the fact that we had put this intent of trusting that if this is it, where we can bring our work into, right, then either the house will sell fast, or the person that is, selling this sanctuary that we are in now will wait for us. And it sounded like beyond reason that someone would wait for us, for how many months it would be. And when the agent talked to the seller about our vision and the music being brought in this place and the healing being brought in this place, she said, "It is them. It is them." And so on her end, she had been also praying for the right people to continue the vision of this home, you know. And so
Fantastic.
we met and she waited for 3.5 months. And there were other, people that really wanted to purchase this home, but she wanted the right match. And that was miraculous.
See, I love it. I love it because people think, oh, that's a business thing and they keep it separate from their spiritual world. But when you're in flow like you are, when you're open and connected like you are, things arrange themselves. And that's really, really cool. And for all those listening, both Ines and I live in Santa Fe, or as we like to say, Fantasy. And and can you tell people the address and the street name of your home? Not the address, because I don't want them to find it, but can you tell them the street name that you live on?
Yes, it's called Blue Feather.
All right. So there you go. There you go. It's the Blue Feather House.
Yes.
That's what I've seen you mention it as. And so yeah, it's just how these miracles work. So uh any last words that you would like to share to people who are in their transition and in their growth process, how they can start to embody all the connection that you're talking about, whether it's with music or with animals or with the spirit realm, the synchronicity and the winks? What would you tell people who are listening to just give them that next step up?
Hmm. So I feel that we are really called as a collective right now to do ancestral clearing and cleansing. And it's really fascinating to see like how it's all over the internet now, like those spiritual teachers like really focusing on our ancestral wounding. And that has been my premise for many, many years because I had an experience with my own ancestral line. And that's what kind of kicked in all the different languages, was to include also the voice of those that no longer had voices. So the ancestors, So really, for me, I would say three things: to call in the love of your ancestors and ask for the love of your ancestors, for the love of life that they had living on this plane, to be transmitted and clearing anything that was not love with love. So asking for their support to cleanse their own, wounding within the vessel that you are now in. So asking for a DNA reset in a way. So clearing, cleansing, and then bringing in the connection with your own elementals, you know, like blessing the spirit of the air in your lungs, the fire in your solar plexus, and the desire to share, your gifts, and to share generosity, and the waters in your belly, like feeling the creative flow, like really to honor all the parts and the earth of you, daily as a practice. And so that's number two. And number three is asking for your allies to also show up as magical winks. And usually the allies will show up as animals. For me, It has been feathered ones, and that's why I honor them by, wearing also feathers and living in blue feather.
And using the name Starbird.
Yes, Starbird, and honoring the name that feels will support, the mission. So in a way, having those three hints into bringing more of the fourth of magic, right? It's honoring the vessel, clearing it, bringing it, some more trusting energy that this is what we are made of. And then the third thing is calling in allies that will very often show up as you know um, animals or insects and birds and all the different. And it can be in a dream
So
if you're living in a city, right? It can be like calling their energy in to support you in this realm. And it can be in a dream. If you're living in a city, it could be like a whale comes in and kind of sings you into sleep. um, yeah, so there are a lot of influences that can be called in.
So please don't end your viewing of the video. We're going to close with music that Ines and her beautiful husband Michael have composed and performed. So you want to stay around and have that uplift you and take that into the rest of your day. But I just want to sit there and just go over a couple of things to just let you know that you can live a 5D life. You don't have to be somebody special. You just have to allow and open yourself. And Ines gave you 3 beautiful tips, which, you can just start to practice that. So check the link below for Starbird's website. And if you want to book a session for healing or clearing, that's so important. You really focus on the ancestral realm. I always look at it, and I've been trying to get this idea in my head that I am my ancestors. That's just crazy. But that's the clearing of them is clearing of me, and vice versa. Whenever I do a personal clearing, I always bring them in. They're always like, I always see this pyramid if I'm standing on the shoulders of so many generations, and they've been waiting for me to be the one to break through to lift this energetic out so that they can be free. And so it kind of works both ways in my experience. So and both my wife and I, Tracy, offer healing sessions by donation, clearing sessions, not healing sessions. So you've got lots of resources available. If you want an activation to start doing your own light language, check out the link to Gnostic TV. Please put your comments below, because this is not just us having this experience. You're having your experiences. Share them, discuss what you hear. It's really important. I'd love to be in touch with you and know what you're thinking. And then, of course, if you can, please give us a like and a subscribe. That'll help the algorithm. Share this with anybody else you think is interested in light language or in this kind of activation and clearing. It'll be very, very helpful. So any parting words before we go to some music, Ines?
I would say be comfortable with your own sound signature. And I feel like this is part of the opening is to let it express itself.
So I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd. And the only thing I can think of when you say be comfortable with your own sound signature is that scene from The Princess Bride. My name is Inigo Montoya. And he waited his whole life just to say that. That's who he is. So there you go. Be comfortable with your own sound signature. And let's take a moment now to listen to a beautiful composition. And this is called Another Moon. Thank you, Ines, for being such a beautiful soul, for sharing your light. Everything you do, wherever you go, you raise the vibration around you. Much love and gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you so much.